Welcome back to another sketch tutorial. In this episode we're going to be looking at setting up our typography and keeping it in line with our color system as well. So we've got a primary font style, error, warning and success, and then we've got our dark and light colors as well. But within those dark and light we've got a few different types of emphasis on those fonts to help us to exaggerate our visual hierarchy to make it much easier for our users to find the information that they're looking for. So let's get stuck in. Okay, let's get started by just creating a new artboard. Let's just call it typography. So let's start by creating our primary textile. So as we saw in the preview, I'd like to create 4 different textiles for the body text and then 4 for the headings. So let's go from the bottom. I'm going to use the font Inter. It's one of my favorites. It's just very nice for interfaces, very versatile, and it is free. So I'll post a link to that as well in the description. I'm just going to make everything medium for now. So let's start on our small size. So I'm going to choose 12. And when it comes to line height, I'm going to make everything 1.5 times the size of the font size for the line height, consistent across all our font sizes. Okay, and because this is our primary, I want to make sure I'm using the primary color variable here as well, which is nice because then if we ever change our primary color variable, our font colors change in line with that, so everything keeps updated. I'm just going to call it small just so we know what we're dealing with. Let's duplicate this. Next one I'm just going to call this regular. This one I'm going to make 16. So this is going to be our sort of main body font size. And again, I'm using a 1.5 times line height. So there we go. Let's duplicate again. I'm going to go for a large, which I'm going to make 20 font size with a line height of 30. And then an extra large with 24 font size and 36 line height. So that's going to be our main body text. I'm just going to tidy these up, give them a 64, let's say. Well, we can tidy that up later a bit more. Okay, now let's create our headings. So I'm going to duplicate the extra large one. Still going to use Inter for the font, but let's just call this H4. Let's go H3, H2, and H1. If we were building a website or an app or whatever, in our HTML we'd probably use H1 for our largest heading, and then H4 in this example will be our smallest, but you can add as many heading types if you want. You can add some more body sizes if you want. I'm just going to use these as an example, but feel free to mix and match to your own needs. Now I'm going to change the weight of the headings to, let's just make them bold, just to make them stand out a little bit more, give it a bit more visual hierarchy. And let's change the size of these. Okay, H4, let's go with 28. Now you can manually type in a line height here like I'm doing, or you could type in 28 and you could put in a little sum here, so times 1.5, and that would get you to 42 anyway. So you can either do the calculations yourself or just let Sketch do the work, which might make more sense. Let's go with 36 on H3, and let's show the sum again, so 1.5. Nice. H2, we're going to make 48. So let's do 48 times 1.5 in the line height. And for our H1, let's go with 64. Again, 64 times 1.5. I mean, with the headings, you can probably get away with the line height actually being a bit less if you want to. I would still recommend using a minimum of 1.5 in amongst your body text for paragraphs. It's good for readability on screens. But the headings you can probably play around with and just see what you think works best for your project. Okay, let's tidy these up. But before we start creating our layer styles, I'd also like to create a few different variants of each of these. So at the moment, we've got left aligned for all of these. So if we were to use, let's say I did quickly set up a layer style primary small. If I was to then add some text using the layer style small, it's automatically left aligned. Cool, that's fine. But if we did want center aligned or even right aligned text here, this actually immediately disconnects it from its text style. So if I was to subsequently update this to 20 for whatever reason, and update, this would get updated, but it would override any changes to alignment. So whereas previously it was right aligned, it's been reverted back to left aligned. So this is not ideal. So I'd actually quite like to create a left, center, and right version of each of these. So let's just undo what we did there. Okay, so I'm just going to give ourselves a bit more space here. And let's duplicate this a few times. So the left one here, left align, that's fine, that's great. The middle one, I'm going to go to center align, and the right one, let's go to right align. And now let's do the same with regular. Okay, now we've got those set up, and each size has a left, center, and right align version. Now we can start creating our textiles. So let's head over to small again, and let's start creating. So I'm going to group them by color first of all. So let's say primary, then I'm going to say by text size, so let's say small, and then I'm going to group by alignment. So primary, small, left. Perfect. Now we're going to do the same for the middle one. So let's say create, and call this primary, small, center. Oh, if I can spell. There we go. And for the right one. So primary, small, right. And now I'm basically going to do the same for each of these text sizes. Okay, now we've got those initial layer styles set up for our primary font color. So let's just look at the text style structure so far. So if I just add a new bit of text there, look at our text style drop down. For this document, we can see we've got primary, and inside of that, we've got our small, regular large, extra large, and our headings as well. And within each of those, we've got a left, center, and a right. Now that's nice. I'd just like to do some housekeeping on how we've named these as well, just so we maintain the order from largest to smallest. And also, inside of each of these, I'd like left to be first. So I'm going to head over to our other view here, head over to textiles, so I can just work on this. So you can see in our drop down here, we've got each of these sort of folders. So let's update those. Let's give number 1 to heading 1. Oh, there we go. 2 to heading 2. 3 to heading 3. 5, let's go to extra large, and then fairly self-explanatory. 6 to large, 7 to regular, and 8 to small. Now they should appear in our textile drop-down in a nice order. And I also mentioned I'd quite like to edit each of these so that left comes first, then center, then right. Now I could, of course, go into each of these manually and update them that way. So I could, for example, click on center or left, let's start with. I could go 1, center 2, and right 3. That's fine, but it would take quite a long time to do that for each of those, and being lazy as I am, I don't want to do that. So there is a slightly easier way to do that. What I can do is you can search. So I can search directly by left, and I can select all of these by just going Command A, and I've got all of them selected. So I can just go up to here and edit the name of all of them at the same time, which makes our life a little bit easier. So I can do the same for center. Go in here, select all of these, go to 2, and then do the same for right, and give that number 3. And if we select back up here, let's clear our search. Now we can see that all of these have been updated. So if we head back to our pages, and I look at this bit of text again, we can see the updates we've made. So we've got our nice order here now, and we've got an order inside of each of these. Okay, so now we've got our textiles set up for our primary color. Now let's go ahead and start doing the same for the rest of our colors. So let's just get rid of this. I'm going to go ahead and just group these into primary before we forget. And I'm going to duplicate this group and call it error. Okay, I'm just going to open the group and select all of the text elements in the group and give them our error color variable. Now, if we pressed update right now, well, I can do that, it would update our primary because these are still connected to the primary textiles. So unfortunately, we're going to have to go through one by one on each of these and create a new textile. And we're going to have to do this for each of these color styles. But let's start creating these error textiles. So if I go create, I'm going to make sure to change primary to error. And then we've got everything else pretty much set up the same. It will normally add a little 2 to the end as well, so you need to get rid of that. But that is good to go. We've already named our small 8, so that will come in the right order. And we've got left as number 1, so that's cool. So let's do the same for the rest of the error textiles. Okay, so now we've set those up. Let's just put another piece of text to have a look at an example. So if we look at our drop down, we can see we've now got primary and error, and inside error we've got all of our text sizes and alignments inside of each of those. Like I said, we'll sort out the order of our colors here at the end, but we can see what we're going for now. And now we're going to do the same for warning and success. Okay, great. So we've now got those set up for primary, error, warning, and success. Again, if we just put in a bit of text, let's have a look at the state of our text style drop down. As we can see, we've got each of those colors, and inside those, the text sizes and the alignment. So that's cool. Now, for our dark and light, I'd like to do something a little bit different. As well as creating a sort of full opacity version that we've got here, I'd also like to create a few extra versions to give us a bit of variation in the emphasis we want to set on that text. So what I mean by that is I want to create a few different variants for each of those, for each of dark and light, that have a bit lower opacity as well. So I'm going to basically take the first 4 colors, or the first 4 opacities from our color section here, and call these high emphasis, medium emphasis, low emphasis, and disabled. And this will allow us to create a much clearer visual hierarchy and to communicate the status of an element. So if it is disabled, it will be clearer that that is not interactable at that time. So let's start getting into this. So as before, I'm just going to duplicate the success section here first of all. So let's call this dark high emphasis. And this is the one we're going to use at full opacity. So let's select all of these first of all, make them the dark color variable over here. So let's go ahead and create our textiles for these. Let's go create. I'm going to go with dark, as same as we had before, but in between the color itself and the text size, I would also like to add in the emphasis. So for example, this one I'm going to go with high emphasis. Okay, so we've got dark, high emphasis, small, and left. There we go. And let's do the same for the center one and the right one as well. So let's quickly take a look at this before we go any further. If I go in our textiles drop down now, we can see we've got dark, high emphasis, then the text size, and then the alignment. So we've got another layer here, whereas these go straight into the text size. We have our emphasis as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create all of the textiles for the rest of the high emphasis dark row. Okay, now we're going to continue on and create the medium emphasis, low emphasis, and disabled versions of dark. And these are already connected up to our dark color variable, but I'm just going to check what the opacity was on our 800 weight. So that is 72%. So I'm going to set these all to 72%. There we go. And again, if I clicked update, that would update the high emphasis one. So I'm going to have to go through manually again. So let's do that now. Go to small. Let's go create, and let's call this medium emphasis. And then we repeat the same for the rest of the row. Okay, and now we're going to do the same for the low emphasis and the disabled version. So I'm going to duplicate this again. Just collapse that. Let's call this low. And let me just check the next color down. That's 48%, so let's use that. So I'm going to select all of these in the row. Let's go 48% opacity. And there we are. Let's go through and change those textiles as well. And we're going to do the same now for disabled. So duplicating the row again. Just going to rename this to disabled. Open them up. Oh, let me just check the color first. This is 32. So we're going to go for 32% opacity. And again, update the textiles. Okay, fantastic. We've got those set up now. Again, if we just put in a bit of text, look at our textiles, we can see in dark, we've got disabled, high emphasis, low emphasis, and medium emphasis. So if I just select low, for example, we've automatically gone for left in heading 1. Now, I would like to control the order as well, so that high is first, then low, then medium, then disabled. So I'm just going to manage that from the components view. So I'm just going to collapse these for a second. Okay, so high I want to be first, so let's rename that. Medium second, low third, and disabled fourth. And if we go back and take a look, now we can see we've got dark, high first, medium second, low third. So that is working nicely. Alright, now we're going to create the light version with these varying levels of emphasis. So I'm just going to duplicate these groups for now. Put them together. Just going to rename them before I forget. Okay, cool. Let's bring in a background here. So when we change them to light, we can actually see them. Okay, I'm going to lock that background layer so we don't select it accidentally. And I'm just going to check these to select the content of the group on click so that we can now just select them all at the same time. And we can update the color variable that it's connected to. So I'm just going to change that to light, and straight away that's produced exactly what we want visually. We'll still need to update the textiles, but that's what we're looking for. I'm just going to change the background now. We can put that back up to full opacity so you can see those a little bit better. But this is exactly what we want. So we've got a high emphasis, medium, low, and disabled. So if we're using text on dark colors or any kind of dark background, we could use the light ones here. Okay, now let's start creating the textiles. Now unfortunately it's going to be a bit of a manual process like before. We're going to have to go through each of these, create a new one, change it to light, but let's get stuck in anyway. So I'm going to go create, change that to light instead of dark, and get rid of that little 2 on the end. And there we go. Lights, and there we go. So I'm going to repeat this for all of these. Okay, so now we've got those light variants set up as well. So if we just have a look at bringing in a little bit of text, have a look at our drop down here, our textiles drop down, we can see we've got the high, medium, low, and disabled versions of all of these text sizes and all of these alignments. As mentioned before, just going to do a bit of housekeeping to update the order of these colors so it's consistent with how we've been using them in our colors outlines section over there. So let's just head to the components panel, and we're already in textiles, so I'm going to go primary with 1, error as 2, warning 3, success 4, dark 5, and light will be number 6. So if we just have a look again at that drop down, now we've got that nice order again. But one last thing I'd like to show you on the typography here is how to update things and keep them consistent across all of these different colors and across these text sizes. So if I wanted to, for example, change the regular for all of them. I could go in to each one and update it manually, but that would take a really long time. So you can actually, because of the way they're laid out, you can select all of the regulars at once. So if you wanted to change the size to 18, for example, maybe 18 times 1.5 for the line height, and you can update all of them in one go. So now all of these have an 18 and a line height of 27, which is really nice and easy. I'm just going to undo that. You could also do the same. You could change the font, for example, of your headings. So you could change this to, let's go with something like Poppins. Not too different. Maybe let's go with a serif Recoleta perhaps. Nice and different there. And if you've got them all selected, you can hit update and they're all updated. But we'll have a look at the power of changing something small at the top and how that trickles down to the rest of the design when we get into creating some of our components, like our form elements and a more complex element containing lots of different symbols as well. So we'll have a look at that in the next couple of tutorials.